Welcome back to part 2 of Resilience and Coping Skills, where we will be looking at healthy routines and coping strategies. In terms of coping skills, developing a healthy routine is probably one of the best things we can do for ourselves. A healthy routine centres around getting enough sleep, eating well and at regular times, doing some form of exercise you enjoy, and getting some air. We all know this stuff, we've heard it a million times before, but it's often difficult for people who are neurodivergent to follow this guidance for one reason or another. For example, sleep can be an issue when you're on certain types of medication. And we see a lot of people with very genuine sensory issues surrounding food who either have incredibly restricted diets or who can't cook at all due to it being completely overwhelming. And this is why we need to frame this in terms of what is appropriate for you as an individual. So what does a healthy routine look like for you?
I think a healthy routine can vary from person to person. And for me personally, it's about eating regularly, taking a break regularly, making sure I get enough sleep, and having a bit of time to myself now and again just to unwind.
I have a reasonably decent routine at the minute. I don't have a good going to bed routine. My healthy routine for me would be actually going to bed before, not getting hyper focused on something at like 6 o'clock at night and then realizing it's 1 in the morning. A healthy routine for me would look like actually eating 3 meals a day rather than just randomly eating breakfast and then at some point in the day eating another meal. So it would be, I try to exercise. I go to the gym and swimming. I do a bit of work now and then. It's hard to me to say what, because I have a routine. I have I do one thing on a Monday and then I go to work on a Tuesday and I spend Wednesday and Thursday resting. Friday I go swimming. Saturday, some Saturdays I go to the allotment. Some Saturdays and Sundays I just rest. And a healthy routine looks like eating at least 2 decent meals a day, resting when I need to rest, realizing that there's a reason I set up those reminders to, eat and drink and go to the loo, and sleep. Sleep is good. Sleep is always, getting enough sleep is good for you. You'll get enough sleep, get enough sunshine, go for a walk, face the bills and do what you need to do. Even if it means you've got to write like schedules and stuff. If that works for you, it works.
A healthy routine to me looks dreadful. I can't give a very good answer about what a healthy routine for me looks like, because for me it would be the most unhealthy routine possible. I just want to sit here, play games, and go do band practice with my band and do gigs and eat as much junk food as I want. I have apple slices in my fridge, but that's about as close as I get to something healthy. A healthy routine to me is very different to what everyone else considers healthy. It's staying up as late as you can and just enjoying life. As long as you're enjoying the way you're living your life and you're doing the things that you enjoy, then I think that's healthy enough.
I think healthy routine has got to start with sleep. You have to have decent sleep. Now, for me, my brain is so active that I need medication to force my brain to stop so that I can sleep. Otherwise, I won't for 3, 4, 5 days, which is obviously not good for you. So start with a good night's sleep. Get up at a reasonable time in the morning, giving enough time to get yourself awake and ready for the day. To have something to eat in the morning, because it's going to prepare your body for being able to cope. If you're hungry and you're tired and you're mucky, sweaty, yesterday's clothes still in dramas, you can't possibly hope to have a productive day. So those issues need to be addressed before you can really do anything with your life.
Healthy routines. I'm going to have to come back to you on that one. I'm not good at establishing healthy routines. I'm due an ADHD diagnosis shortly, so an assessment, not diagnosis, that's not confirmed, but I am not good at maintaining schedules. I like routine, but I also hate routine, so take that with a pinch of salt. If you do enjoy routines, then yeah, scheduling's useful to have. It provides consistency, reliability. That is a good thing to have. And one of the most important things I learned training in therapy, and it's going to sound really peculiar, but motivation follows action. You're not going to want to do the thing at first, but once you've done it, you're going to start wanting to do it. Like exercise, a friend of mine just recently was surprised how much they really enjoyed going on a long yomping walk. And it wasn't anywhere fancy, but they were about it. But as soon as we'd finished the walk, they were red-faced, they were hot, and they said, "That was amazing. Can we do it again next week?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course we can." So yeah, motivation comes after action. So establish your routine, stick to it. Habits take about 2 weeks to form. And don't forget, for neurodivergent people, habits aren't quite the same as they are for everybody else. When allistic, that's not autistic people, say they form a habit, it's something that they do automatically as a response. Whereas for us, we're usually going to have to be thinking about it. We're aware of it. We've got to put mindful thought into doing a thing. And that's probably always going to be like that. But if you know that, that's a tool that you can use.
Another helpful coping skill is distraction. Learning when to distract ourselves from unhelpful and negative thoughts is a really effective coping technique. And distractions should be things that you really enjoy and that you can fully immerse yourselves in. So interests, hobbies, or any kind of physical activity are all brilliant. Cultivating emotional awareness is really important, but it can also be an incredibly challenging thing to do. Emotions can be a real abstract concept for some people. So how do you go about cultivating emotional awareness if you do at all?
Cultivating emotional awareness is a difficult one because everybody does it differently. And maybe it's about listening to your body some of the time. Like if you've got tightness in your chest, does that mean that you're worried about something? If you've got pains in your back, does that mean that maybe you've taken on a bit too much and you're needing to relax and do a bit of self-care? I think trying to be aware of those kinds of things, if you notice that you're knocking things over, for example, all the time, maybe that means you need to slow down and give yourself a bit of care and nurturing, because maybe things are a bit too stressful.
I have to sit with my emotions. I actually have to sort of, because I have slight alexithymia. I struggle to recognise. My interoception's terrible as well. Like, I don't know what the hell's going on with my body. I have mysterious bruises. And I don't know what I'm feeling all the time. I have to like sit with it and go, all right, what is this? What is it making me feel? Why do I feel like this? And it takes time. And sometimes, sorry, I'm just getting distracted by something. Sometimes you have to give yourself time. And if everybody else is rushing to do stuff, well, that's their thing. Like, you've got to acknowledge that you might do things differently. And if that means you have to sit with your emotions, and you might need to, like, I joke that I learned to be human by reading fantasy. The decent thing about fantasy is people write out complex, like, the explanations for why people do stuff, because often in fantasy, like, there's completely different worlds for why they do it. And it helped me to, like, when it's explanations of how people are feeling in fiction helped me to, I could map it onto some of the things I was feeling and get a sort of idea of, oh, that's what that means. That's what that feeling is. I've also heard people who use writers' dictionaries of emotions to work out how they feel. Like, there's which is not a technique I've tried yet.
Emotions are a difficult thing. I don't believe anyone ever fully understands their emotions. And even emotions that are similar, they're difficult to decipher from each other. And so the way I do it is I always try and remember that every emotion's different and try and have a different way of describing when I'm feeling the similar emotions. Like, for some people, frustrated and irritated are similar. Like, my band members will say, oh, Jay's just getting frustrated. And I'm like, no, I'm not frustrated, I'm irritated. And it's about remembering the slight differences so that you can express yourself the way you think is best to express. And it's about remembering how you're feeling inside and what led to that, because I believe the cause of those feelings also helps decipher which emotion you're feeling at the time. And so it's just about being aware of every cause and effect leading up to that emotion, and then just being aware of what it is, which I appreciate is very, very difficult.
That's really tricky. Really, really tricky. I think I still don't have this one. So if we go back to the DBT course that I was on, it taught me how to analyze events, something that had gone wrong or something that had gone right, and the events that had led up to that happening. Also, behavior chain analysis, where you analyze what the consequences of this event are and further consequences down the line. It's a very logical approach, but as part of that, a consequences and retrospective analysis can start to identify how you were feeling or you will feel in any given context, and you can examine red flags and triggers, which are can be physical. There can be physical signs in your body to look out for, or there can be behavior signs of other people around you, which you can use as information as their response to how you're behaving. And so you can use that information from other people's behavior to stop and look at what you're doing, and to try and figure out what it is that you're really doing and what your behavior means to yourself at that time.
Emotional awareness, well, call me biased, but therapy. So, okay, this one's actually a lot more complicated than that, because for about 40% of autistic people, there's a condition called alexithymia. That's a difficulty in recognizing emotions, and that's not just everybody else's emotions, that can be your own emotions. And you can feel something, but you don't know what and you don't know why, and that's really difficult to deal with. A lot of the time it's ended up as a coping mechanism, or because, well, all right, I'll give you an example. You remember back as a kid and everybody was like, oh, so-and-so's having a birthday party, isn't that going to be fun, we're all going to have a great time. And I don't know about you, but when I went to a birthday party, it was loud, it was bright, it was chaotic, it wasn't an enjoyable experience, but everybody was telling me it's supposed to be enjoyable, and it really wasn't. So I started doubting myself. Is this what I'm experiencing? Is this fun? And even as an adult, because I didn't get diagnosed until my early 30s. I know I don't look it. No, I'm joking. Even as an adult, going to pubs with my friends, I'd look at them and go, this is really loud in here. Are you honestly telling me this is fun? And they'd say, I don't know what the issue is. We're having a great time. And I'm like, but I can't hear people talking. And it's just, I'm like, no, mate, no, you're all right. My idea of a good time is board games, get some friends round, have some share a big bowl of snacks and dinner. All right, that might not be everybody's cup of tea, but that's my idea of a good time. I don't get all of this nightclubs and alcohol nonsense. But again, no judgment if that's your cup of tea. You do you, innit? Sorry, yeah, we were talking about emotional awareness. I got completely off topic there. Welcome to being autistic. So one tool I found particularly useful and want to recommend quite regularly, especially to people who are just discovering what it means. There's a really handy book called The Emotional Thesaurus, or The Emotions Thesaurus, and it's written as a guide for authors to expand on how they're describing an emotion. But when I was flipping through it, I discovered it's basically a field guide to what emotions look like, to how they feel. So, like when your stomach's tense, it could be anxiety, it could be love struck, it could be a lot of things, but this book covers all of that. It suggests other things it could be. You can do it the other way around, and how does angry feel to most people? What does angry look like to most people? And there's whole definitions in this book. It's really handy. And one of the most powerful tools for cultivating emotional awareness is what we call the internal supervisor. It's stepping back in your head and going, what's actually happening here? How do I feel? Are my muscles tense? Do I feel sick? Am I hot? Am I cold? How do I physically feel? And how does that connect to the situation I'm in? Do I feel that something's wrong here? Listen to that intuition. It might be wrong, absolutely, but nearly always that intuition is trying to tell you something important. And that's how you cultivate emotional awareness, by listening to what your body's telling you, to what your brain's telling you, and trying to work out where that's coming from.
Mindfulness and relaxation are some more really helpful coping skills, but what actually is mindfulness? Mindfulness is where we cultivate awareness of our experience in this moment right now. Quite often, we get caught up in our heads with unhelpful thoughts and judgments, which can cause us stress and anxiety. When we become aware of our thoughts, we gain more control over how we can respond to them. If you're interested in giving it a go, some useful apps are things like Calm or Insight Timer, both of which are free. We often find that you either love it or hate it, and it's important to know that that's okay. We're all individuals, and what will work for one person won't necessarily work for another. I feel very strongly about mindfulness, as it's helped me gain better control over my thoughts and how I respond rather than react to situations. I also teach mindfulness, which allows me to observe the difference that it can make to even the most skeptical person. However, mindfulness isn't for everyone. Some people simply don't get on with it, and that's okay. Let's hear some other opinions.
The way in which mindfulness helps me is that it allows me to have a space where I'm not actually actively thinking about something. It allows the things in my mind to go on without me actually having to have anything to do with them. They just go on, and it's like, it can be like a eureka moment when afterwards something comes back to me, you know, that name of a flower that you've forgotten, or a solution to a problem. It just suddenly pops up because I've allowed myself to relax and my brain to do what it's going to do.
Well, for a start, it just gives me a space to separate apart from what I'm normally doing. Is like, I can say, stop, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going to sit and go to mindfulness group for an hour or a fortnight, and it's just like a break. Also, I get to see people I like, and it's hard to do things like visualizations because I can't see pictures in my head, which is a strange thing for a writer to say, but I can't see pictures in my head. So like having images helps, and it just, sometimes it's just the music's nice and soothing, or the voice is really soothing. It's like listening to an audiobook. If I'm just right off the right narrator, very soothing.
For me, it just does not work. I cannot do it. I've attempted it on multiple occasions, but as soon as she says something, or whoever's running the group says something that sounds like a song lyric, you've lost me. I'll be sat there singing a song inside my head, and I just won't be able to let it go. Or if we're sat there in complete silence and I feel like I'm getting into it, a car will go off outside or something, and I'll be like, oh, what's that? And yeah, you've lost me. So I just cannot get my mind around it. If it helps people, then that's brilliant. I'm glad you found something that helps you. But for me, it's just, it's just not working.
It grounds me. It brings me back to a physical, emotional, psychological place of balance. So if I'm feeling manic or distressed or anxious and I go through my mindfulness routines, it doesn't get rid of those problems. It doesn't really have any effect on the world around me, but it does bring me back to my place of balance, where I can put things in perspective.
For me, I try to do a mindfulness practice to clear my brain, because I'm one of those overthinkers. In my head at any given moment, there's at least 2 different voices saying different things and giving me useful information. I'm often in a conversation with myself or an argument with myself, which is great because I always win, but it's awful because I always lose. So take your pick. No, sorry, humour again. I'll behave. So yeah, having a meditation session, it means I can try to slow those voices down, to give myself a little bit of space without my brain asking me questions. And you're not going to be good at it first time. Don't worry about that. Take the pressure off. You're going to have thoughts pop up. So take a moment, look at that thought and just let it go, let it be. It's not important right now. We can come back to it later. And if it's important, it will come back later. So yeah, that's been really important to establishing I won't say a sense of peace because that's not quite right. But again, like I said earlier, giving myself some of that breathing space. And another part of another tool that's often used in mindfulness is grounding techniques. If you're not familiar with them, I strongly recommend looking it up. It's really straightforward. The basic principles, there's a bunch of different grounding techniques you can use. I particularly like tactile grounding techniques. So I will grab an object, any object, obviously not a person because that would be weird, but you grab an object and I look at the colour of it. I try and find different ways to describe the colour. I feel the texture of it. Is it rough? Is it smooth? Is it hot? Is it cold? And to take a few minutes to immerse myself deeply into that one object for just a short time. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be a pen even. But allowing that time to shut everything else out and just hyper focus on that one item just for even a couple of minutes can really help de-escalate. And so if I'm angry or if I'm upset and I haven't got time to be angry or upset because I need to work or I need to deal with a situation that's happening, grounding's a really good focus point to pull it back in for a few minutes, to get some control. Having said that, it's not healthy to do it all the time. You've got to give yourself time to express that emotion in a safe place, in a safe way. I use a lot of journaling. Again, that's considered another form of mindfulness technique, to write out how I feel and how I think. Because I'm writing it just for myself, because nobody else is reading it, I can be as honest as I like. I don't like some of the things that I've written. And I read back and I go, wow, I really felt that way, or I really thought that. And Terry Pratchett wrote it really nicely. He said something along the lines of, your first thoughts is what you've been taught, your second thoughts is who you are. So yeah, journaling gives a really nice space to understand what you're thinking and why you're thinking.
And finally, another effective coping skill is to have a crisis plan. These are very simple documents that are designed to help you in times of crisis when you're maybe not thinking straight. They have all the relevant information that you or someone who's supporting you can use to help you access the support you need. They're particularly helpful if you get overwhelmed in times of crisis. I tend to shut down and I find it difficult to talk. So having something written down that I can show to people is really helpful for me. There are plenty of templates that are available online if you feel that having something like this would be useful. We're at the end of the session and we really hope you found it useful. We rely on formal feedback to keep this project running, so please fill out the baseline and feedback forms that were emailed with this video link. And we'd really appreciate it if you could fill them in with honest feedback, because we genuinely want to make this service better and accessible for more people. If you don't have the links for the feedback forms, please consider sending one of us an email with your thoughts about the video, or a message through the Faraway's Instagram or Facebook pages. Our contact details are in the video description below. From all of us at the Faraway, thank you for watching.